Hello, everyone. Today we will be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion for the United Way of Rutherford and Cannon counties. The contributors for this project are Catherine Halleck, Rachel Harless, Tanner Niles, and myself, Bailey Peterson. At the bottom of your screen on the left-hand side, you can see our names and what we contributed.
So to begin our research, we looked for the organizations with the best DEI statistics and policies. We roughly searched around 30 sources, and those were websites, databases, academic journals, and trade sources. So for our best practices research, we divided it into two sections, for-profit and non-profit sections. The top organizations for the for-profit section were BlackRock Incorporated, Natra and Co Holdings, and Accenture. And for nonprofit, we had Kellogg Foundation and the Ford Foundation. So with these companies, we wanted to see if there were any trends that led to their diversity and inclusion, but we quickly found out that there were no trends between each company. They each hold their own market and their own demographic, and they each have built their own special culture. The three key practices for this entire project for the for-profit sections were diversity as a strategic plan, measurement and reports, and top leadership. And one thing that we noticed about these companies is their inclusion. Robert from BlackRock Incorporated stated that without inclusion, diversity means nothing. So our focus is on creating an inclusive environment for all employees, covering the whole spectrum of diversity. That brings us to our first key practice, which is diversity as a strategic plan. The GAO, which is a Government Accountability Office, ranks this as the second strongest way that a company can foster their diverse and inclusive workforce. This keeps the executives' feedback from the employees. The executives can give feedback to the employees, and the employees can give feedback back to the executives. This also makes sure that the executives stay committed and that they are held responsible for their actions. And for our second key practice is measurements and reports. The GAO ranks this as the fourth strongest way that a company can foster an inclusive and diverse workforce. So these provide vital feedback to the employees and the shareholders. They allow the company to share their data and the diversity reports for each department. So HR, accounting, and so on. You're going to know each percentage of employees, male, female, and the races, the genders, everything. You're going to know what's going on with every department. You can keep it updated and keep everybody informed. And so this brings us to our first company, which is our second company, which is Accenture. And we believe that they have the most effective reports. So in one of their reports on diversity, they talk about how they want to increase their women working in the industry to 40%. And they want to facilitate open and honest conversations with their employees on how they can increase their diversity efforts, not only in the company, but also regarding things that are going on around in the world. And this brings us to our last topic, which is top leadership commitment. The GAO ranks this as the strongest way a company can foster or can grow and foster their inclusive workforce. So what this means is that someone is always listening to the top leadership. So if you're committed to diversity and inclusion, you need to always maintain that. If you vary and you go from one thing to the other, people are going to notice that, and they're going to keep committed, and they're going to catch you on those things. And so if they know you're committed and you are always on the right track and you're doing what you need to do, then you are going to be on the right path to success. This also brings us to our last company, which is Natra & Co. We selected this company because we believe they have the strongest commitment to their employees and to their shareholders. And on the website, they have an entire report dedicated to their commitment to their life and to their employees. And they truly do go above and beyond, and they let their employees know on a weekly, monthly basis that they are there for them, and no matter what's going on around the world, and then that they can always talk about things, and that they're never going to just leave them out there behind.
So the next best practice is diversity groups. So what this does is they bring in a variety of employees, so people with different races, ethnicities, sexual orientation, spirituality, disability, different backgrounds, and things like that. They bring them together, kind of introduce them. It gets It gives you a way to meet other employees that otherwise you might not discover that you have similarities with, and it fosters engagement between them and in the workplace. So what it'll do is it'll also enhance the organizational culture and form a sense of community. They've been known to assist in improving employee wellness, developing peer mentorship, raising social awareness, and also providing employees with an opportunity to discuss how different policies and procedures are affecting them. So not only does it let them discover that they have things in common with their coworkers, but also it gives the managers an opportunity to sit down with their employees that they look over and really see how they're being affected by different policies, different procedures, and to see if they have any improvements, any recommendations, and also just check in with them, also see what you're doing well as a company. When it comes to transparency in the workforce, it really helps coworkers hold each other accountable, not only with each other, but it holds everyone accountable from the executives, managers, employees, clients, and even in the community. If you have that sort of relationship, you can openly discuss anything, and it forms a bond between not only the employees in the company, but with the company and the public. It enables room for more feedback. It makes management more able to receive that feedback. They're more open to it. And because of that, they're more likely to receive that feedback faster, and it's going to be more honest feedback. And you might get some feedback that otherwise you might not have been able to address if you weren't being transparent and open with the company and with the public. So that does kind of bring me to honesty, transparency with the employees and with the community in regard to your successes and with where your company needs to improve. If you're being honest with your workers and with the public, it's easier for you to share those things, which gives you a good rep with not only your workers, but with potential hires and with the public. So letting your workers know when you're hiring, your different hiring decisions, your promotion decisions, things like that, if you're not hiding it from them, it creates a sense of trust between you and your employees. So to summarize, being honest is really just going to create a stronger bond between the employees and their clients, knowing that their management and their company is not hiding things from them. So that'll give the company a bigger sense of goodwill and improve everyone's overall view of the organization.
Next, we have internal assessments, which literally means assessing what you're already doing. This covers your current practices, policies, procedures, how you collect and evaluate data, literally what you're looking at in those methods, all these different things, anything that you're already doing in your organization, because you want to make sure that in addition to making changes and adding new things, that you're also improving what you've already got going on. So making sure that there's no bias, that there's no inequality, there's no potential for adverse impact, because that can sneak in there and it's going to undermine everything else that you're doing. So another thing that these companies and organizations do is that in addition to collecting this data and making these changes, is that when they get these statistics on their diversity and improvements or things that they need to improve, they consider the reasons and causes behind that data. And they want to know the reasons for the results and feedback that they're receiving from their employees or their customers or whoever else they may be getting feedback from. So, for example, one of the foundations that we researched noticed that while they had an improvement in the number of women that they were promoting, that feedback from their actual female employees revealed that those female employees felt that they didn't have enough promotion opportunities, which meant that while they were technically improving as an organization, there was a disconnect in the culture and communication that needed to be addressed. They wouldn't have known that if they hadn't dug deeper into this data to understand the reasons behind the results that they were finding. And this is important because, similar to the feedback, you need to figure out why things are happening and why people feel a certain way, because that's really what's important. You care about how your employees feel. Numbers don't mean anything. It goes down to what it means to your employees. Next, we have a holistic approach, which really just means that you need to consider every aspect of your organization and what it does. So sure, be diverse in your employees and who you hire, and, you know, make everything welcoming, but also make sure that your brand supports that and communicates that to the public. Make sure that in your planning, that's reflected and taken into consideration. Again, internal assessments, when you're collecting data, make sure that you're looking at all aspects of your organization and not just, you know, white versus black, but look at every race that, you know, there is out there that could be represented in your organization, because you want to take them into consideration because they're all important. This goes for any number of things. Anything involved in your organization needs to be considered. This also means that if you have a partner or a vendor, that you need to look at their mission and what they're doing and their DEI efforts, because by associating yourself with them, you are also therefore taking on what they're representing. And you don't want to be associated with someone that's not representing what you do. So, for example, one of the foundations that we researched, they took the time and the effort to look into, okay, we're staying at this hotel, we're paying these fees and these tips. Who's getting this money? Is this being evenly distributed for everyone that's working for us, or is it only going to certain employees? Because they didn't want to work with a business that wasn't being fair in their wages. Finally, we have vocabulary sensitivity and word choice, which is really just being super mindful of what you're saying and how that can affect others. This applies both to your one-on-one communication, or, you know, even in a group, what you're saying as an individual, but also the job descriptions and the other physical communication given out by the organization, because you want to make sure that you're being mindful of any potential historical or cultural connotations that may be associated with something that you said, and how that may negatively affect another employee or a client or anyone else, because that hurts people. This improves equitable hiring and organizational cohesion. Your organization is going to be more cohesive and unified because you're no longer inadvertently or more purposefully discriminating against employees. This is important. It improves employee performance and their happiness with your organization, and it's overall just going to be very fruitful. Additionally, by being more mindful of the words you're using, you're not going to accidentally discriminate against anyone that may potentially apply for a job. This ensures they are hiring the most qualified applicant, which is obviously very important. You want the best possible person. So this means that you want to make sure that you're updating frequently your job descriptions to make sure that they're as universal as possible in their language. This also includes creating hiring guides for managers so that they don't accidentally discriminate against applicants, because that does happen, especially when you're interviewing someone that is disabled, simply because they don't yet know how to handle that situation. By providing a guide or training, you're teaching them the best way to handle those sorts of situations to be the most inclusive.
Next, we have the recommendations we've prepared for you. We're going to start at the top with top leadership commitment. According to the US GAO report for diversity, equity, and inclusion, top leadership commitment is the #1 thing an organization can do to grow a diverse workplace. Leading by example is important for effective leadership. When creating a diverse organizational culture, employees watch what you say and do, so it is important that those who at the top are fostering a diverse and inclusive environment. Next, we have making diversity part of the strategic plan. Also, according to the US GAO report for diversity, making diversity part of the strategic plan is the second strongest thing an organization can do in order to foster diversity in the workplace. Lastly, we have measurement and reports. This ultimately allows the organization to see the current diversity distribution and the disparities that might exist. This also helps the HR team with selection, which helps tie back into the integrating diversity into the organizational strategic plan.
So something I learned doing this project and doing the best practices research is just how in-depth this topic on diversity and inclusion already is, and how many resources there already are out there, but also how just crazy it is that like it's such a huge topic, but there's still so many things that we can improve upon, and like we're still doing a project over diversity and inclusion, how to make it better. And there's academic journals that go on for years and years that people have been researching this, and it's still such an issue and just such an important topic. And and core thing in businesses today?
The thing that I learned the most is actually probably about United Way itself. For the report, I focused on the introduction, so I did a lot of research on United Way and the impact that they're having in the community. And I had actually never heard of the company because I don't do a lot of research on things like that. So it was really interesting to see the difference that they're making in the community and how many different programs of outreach and different ways that they've affected everyone has really had a strong impact.
So what I learned has more to do with the research itself. I found that it's very interesting to apply research to something that's real. Typically in college and throughout all of school, you do all this research and you say, oh, I guess in this situation I would do this based on this chapter of the textbook. But to go out and find real sources and real companies and apply those to a real situation at a real company is a really great skill to have and a good experience. And it's obviously going to be important for all of us because pretty soon we're going to be out there handling these issues ourselves.
Biggest thing I will take away from this project, from completing my needs analysis and the recommendations, is the importance of having a strategic plan, not flying by the seat of your pants, and having a plan to grow diversity in your workplace. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.